Reddit, what is the worst cheating story you have ever heard? Part 3. Here is mine. It is a long one, but please bear with me. Let me begin with a little bit about myself. I am a 20-something guy living in California. I was seeing a 20-year-old from Tampa. She goes to one of the schools there for her engineering degree. We met online, one thing led to another, and at one point, I asked her if she would like to go out on a date. It took some time, but I was able to convince her to go out with me. We went out to Michigan, her family lives here, and we had a great time. The whole deal ended up with us hooking up in the end. We saw each other a few times, at least once a month, sometimes more than once based on the occasion. Now here's the kicker. I am really a clean guy, with a fairly decent career in tech and reasonably successful. She on the other hand is a student. Young and immature, note this, you will see why. Now, I was in Korea and was working with a client that I received a text from her suggesting that she was fed up with me because of something I mentioned about her friend back in Michigan. Let me get this straight, the friend finished a huge box of condoms just by using Tinder at her school. Now, I am not a big fan of this lifestyle and mentioned this to my girlfriend. Things were not getting better and we decided to take it slow, not see other people for a week and try and fix things. I had a couple of big interviews at B schools on the East Coast and she was the least supportive person I have ever met. She used to be this girl who would care about everyone and everything. But she was just plain freaking cold, pardon my French. So fast forward to this Wednesday. I meet her, get her the most beautiful bouquet of roses, a teddy bear, a lot of tears and apologies for everything, and she apparently wants to work out things with me. I am like, sure. I am at my hotel and she said that she is going out with a guy called Gregory who happens to be gay. Me being a very naive and gullible person, said sure, why not? Just give me a call once you are done. She said that she would spend time with me the next day. Generally she spends all the time with me when I am around, but this time it was different for obvious reasons. At 10 p.m., I try reaching out to her and she doesn't reply. I see that she is on her Xbox and send her a message through her Xbox. Guess what? She is watching Netflix with Gregory in her room and this basically makes me believe that something is not right. And then she sends me a crazy, leave me alone. I proceed to FaceTime her at this point and literally blast her for being the worst and cheating on me. She promises that she did not cheat on me. And in no time, Gregory is back in her room. He is the biggest piece of racist D-bag I have never had the pleasure of meeting. He calls me so many horrible names because I am brown, me being poor, has no freaking clue how tech industry works, then says a lot of racist things. She at the same time laughs with him and then they proceed to have sex in front of me. Obviously I hang up, but can you freaking imagine your girlfriend literally being plowed by a guy who happens to be a convict? Yes, he has a conviction, but apparently since he is under 21, he can get the felony removed, which sucks to be honest. She acts like a complete bee and laughs at me and claims that she is glad she cheated. She claims she didn't say it, but I have messages from her on Xbox wherein she claims that. How could you even do such a thing? I have no clue as to what to do. I feel sad as he screws her and she laughs. At this point I am not on FaceTime. I literally cry like a baby because of the things she made me go through. The next day I meet her, she is not even apologetic. She is like, he is the perfect guy. Good Lord, I hate her. She apologizes a billion times for doing what she did then and cries. Then we bid goodbye as she weeps with me for 15 minutes, but guess what? The second she leaves, she gets on the phone with him and I just give her the look, what the actual hell? She is literally the most disgusting person I have ever met. I am out of here, people. I have so many trust issues right now, I can't even. I just hope she comes to her senses one day and at least apologizes to me genuinely for the hardship which she made me go through. I just hate her. And the real kicker is she blocked from everywhere, pretty sure he made her do it. She has seen him for less than a week, and they are sleeping together. While she was seeing me, she sent some racy pictures to strangers on the internet for master-slave roleplays. She is beyond redemption. I don't even know if a person can be this messed up. And she says that this guy is perfect. You really have a messed up taste if you think someone like that and with a criminal record is perfect. God, I hate going to USF. Rachel, not her real name, I hate you too. I am about to board a flight back to the West Coast in 20 minutes, but I hope to hear your story. Hey, you handled that like a champ. I had my trust issues and deep gut feeling that my ex was fooling around while I was away, and to be honest I still don't know whether she did or not. Short story short, due to me being so attached and a loyal a-hole, she fell in love with the same guy I told her I didn't want her talking to, but I had decided to let her be and thought nothing of it. 3 months after our relationship ended, I saw status updates including hearts and kisses and quotes like my children's children, which due to the severity of my emotional temporary blindness, I assumed he somehow via words connected to the unconscious stories she desired as a kid. But even if she did cheat, I still love her and forgive her and offer my friendship with a full heart. Lesson learned. P.S. Always remember that just as fast as a person came into your life, just as fast as they'll leave it. My boyfriend's ex. She cheated on him with a bunch of guys and she treated him terribly. After he found out about the cheating, he broke up with her. Then, she told his family that he physically abused her and forced her to get an abortion, which wasn't true. This caused a family rift that lasted for 6 months where he wouldn't talk to his family for siding with her. After he told her she needed to leave their shared apartment, she took his dog. Her new boyfriend, one of the guys she cheated with, abused the dog because it belonged to my boyfriend. He never got his dog back because my boyfriend's ex gave her away. But, when he found out about the abuse his baby was enduring, he found the guy and beat the living hell out of him. Anyway, when boyfriend's family realized that my boyfriend's ex was a manipulative liar, they made amends. He forgave them. But, prior to being with me he was single for a number of years. He literally had a relationship from hell and wanted to be by himself. I posted this on Surviving Infidelity subreddit recently. Long story short. My wife was killed in a car crash by a drunk driver. Several months afterward, I am getting the photos off of her phone and finds out she was having an affair. More digging and I find out that she was on her way home from her affair partner's place when the crash happened. Then I remembered that the guy showed up at the funeral, shook my hand and commiserated about how sad it was. Mine might be the craziest one I know of. When my ex-girlfriend cheated on me while I was at basic training, she lied to me and told me she had been sexually assaulted. I gave her one chance to come clean, and she explained it was halfway there, but she never really said no, just didn't invite the advances. Technically it would still be assault, but she wouldn't report it. She came clean, so I tried to stay with her. I had a feeling, however, she lied about the whole thing to try to keep me. A month later, she exploited my sexual insecurities when I got to AIT, including lying to me about being pregnant and then rubbing in my face that she screwed another guy. It would have hurt if I had trusted myself, but I wouldn't have been heartbroken for 4 months and still be having trust issues today. Recently, she talked to me. I wasn't exactly very nice to her, and had told me that because she hadn't received a letter from me yet, we couldn't write in red phase. She had been worried about attention and felt like I wasn't giving her any, hence why she allowed the advances from the guy. There's a lot more to this story in terms of things she hid from me, and I'll never be able to leave it down. I will say, lying about being sexually assaulted to cover up the fact you cheated on your significant other has slowly started to disgust me more and more over time, especially since my current best friend and possibly future significant other was actually assaulted. How could you lie about something that serious and terrible in good faith? Found out that she was going on a date with a guy from her office. She thought I was working that night. Instead, I followed her to the bar and waited in the parking lot. I see her pull up and walk into the bar. I could see through the window, and saw him pay, and they both get up, and go to his car. I follow them to a no-tell motel. They go into a street-level room. The motel rooms are individual units looking out onto the street. I give them 10 minutes to get naked, then I rap at the door. Open up, police. He comes to the door, in a towel. I cold cock him, yank the towel and leave him lying naked and unconscious in the middle of the parking lot. I then grab her. She has the idiotic idea to say, "This isn't what it looks like." I grab the room key and lock them out. She is going crazy trying to cover up and screaming at me to help her. I say okay, and call her mother to come to pick her up. She overhears me telling Mom that I just caught her sleeping with some lowlife from work and I will be filing for divorce on Monday. I get in my car, go to the motel office, and tell them I will be mailing them the key. I warn them not to let her back in the room as the credit card she used is now listed as stolen. The motel people say they will be calling the police. I hope her mom got there before the cops. I have a friend whose dad cheated on their mom, but the worst things were what happened after the fact. The dad confessed to their mom while celebrating their anniversary away to having an affair with a coworker at a restaurant. Dad was the owner, the staff was a middle-aged server. Their mom was upset, but decided to work it through and seek counseling, but with the stipulation that she be fired or that they end things or something like that. The dad decides to break it off and the woman gets so angry that she tries to run over the dad with her car. At some point they decided to have a meeting between the dad, mom, other woman and a lawyer at the restaurant. The other woman was being super aggressive and was trying to touch my friend's dad a lot and their mom asked her not to do that. She got belligerent and angry, went to the kitchen, came back with a knife and a saucepan and tried to assault the mom. She ended up getting arrested and charged with assault. She also pulled all types of other crap like insulting my friend's family and mom to anyone who would listen. Calling them dumb and ugly and saying their mom is a callous bee for not letting her share their dad or some BS. They ended up getting a restraining order against her for the whole family and isn't allowed within 500 feet of any of them. She then tried to apply to the dad's other business under a different name, but it obviously didn't work. They ended up divorcing but are still friends and talk all the time. They don't hate each other or anything. They're the nicest people you could ever meet and have both moved on and are happy now. I'll put one of my previous stories on here and elaborate a little. A woman I knew had a sort of r/dead bedroom situation at home. No intimacy for weeks or months kind of thing. She started sleeping around, met this black dude from her job and started hooking up with him, fell in love with him and moved out of her home with 3 kids, one under 5 years old, and moved in with him. At some point, she realized she didn't want her kids exposed to his kind of parenting and she moved back in with her hubby. She kept screwing around, probably screwed 6 to 8 different guys, eventually screws the black guy again but this time he gave her HPV which resulted in her getting cervical cancer. Hubby knows about the infidelity. She's a real piece of work, even has a gambling addiction that ended up making them miss their mortgage payments several times. Her hubby got caught stealing $16,000 from a job he was a manager at for an auto parts store. She never told me what he did with the money but if I were a betting man I'd say he used it to cover the mortgage and other bills. I had just started a new job and was sitting in the office to finish up some paperwork with my supervisor. As we're talking about things, a guy walks in, looking sheepish. Our supervisor asks him where he's been. He hadn't come to work for 3 days. This launched my new coworker into the craziest story. He started off by saying he was in Hazard, taking care of his mom. So if you're from Kentucky, a little town up in the mountains called Hazard has a bit of a reputation. That was my first clue that this was not going to end well. So his mom, she abruptly wanted a divorce, and had just attempted suicide. See, that would have been enough, absence explained, but this dude proceeded to tell the whole story. His parents had been happily married for a couple decades, which is why she was so completely blindsided. His mom had picked up the house phone and overheard her husband in the middle of phone sex with his sister. When confronted, he admitted it had started when they were teenagers and they wanted to be together. So she now had to face the fact that for their entire marriage, her husband had been cheating with his own sister. Back in the mid-80s, I worked with a salesman, Stan. Stan was married to his high school sweetheart. They were from eastern Kentucky and her family was pretty big in the coal industry so they were pretty well off. During general office chat, he mentioned his wife Laura several times and had a photo of a pretty blonde on his desk. One day close to lunchtime, the pretty blonde from the photo came in. When I encountered her, She introduced herself as Jan and said she was there to see Stan. He came out of his office and greeted her affectionately and they left. I was a little confused and said to a nearby coworker, I thought he said his wife's name was Laura. The coworker replied, his wife is Laura, Jan is his girlfriend. Turns out that Stan had met Jan several years before when he managed a fast food restaurant she worked at when she was 15 and he was 26. They started their affair shortly after. Apparently her parents had no problem with the situation. Her room was where they slept together most often. Then one day it came up in conversation that he had taken her to her senior prom a couple of years earlier. He was driving a cab at the time and simply told his wife he was working an extra night shift. Then he went to his girlfriend's house and got dressed up. He then took her to her prom and they partied the night away in a hotel room after. His wife would drive home and spend the weekend with her parents every few weeks. Occasionally he'd go with her, but most often he'd give some excuse as to why he couldn't go, and then his girlfriend would come over and play house for the weekend. My family is a trip. My granddad was married to his first wife. They had like 5 kids. I can only name one, Kenneth. He will come back up later. Something happened, he and his first wife get divorced and he marries my grandmother Gloria. Gloria has 5 kids of her own with granddad. During this time, the first wife has 3 other kids spaced between Gloria's kids. All look like my granddad. In fact, the first wife drops off the youngest at Gloria's feet and says, "You raise him." The names are similar too. There's a Joseph and a Joel. Pretty messed up. I have a lot of family members I've never met. So flash forward to Kenneth. Ken marries his wife, has 3 kids with his first wife. Is deployed to Vietnam for a couple tours. Between 2 tours, doesn't come home, goes to California, finds a random girl, hooks up and has a kid. He goes back to Nam and doesn't hear from her for 20 plus years. So 25 years later, I'm in boot camp in the Corps and my PMI, primary marksmanship instructor, has my last name. It's not common. After a few conversations it becomes clear my PMI is my long-lost cousin and Kenneth's son, who after finding out, leaves his wife and moves back to California to be with this lady. Then there's my dad, who I found out had at least 4 different side chicks during his 20-year marriage to my mom. Including one girl I went to high school with. The first girl to show me any affection at my new school, went out with her, things were going fine. Then found out she was also dating her girl best friend. So she had a boyfriend and girlfriend. The girlfriend and I came to a sort of understanding and all was okay. Until I needed to use my girlfriend's phone for something. She was in an active sexual relationship with another guy that her other girlfriend knew nothing about, and he knew nothing of us. She'd also been talking to this guy for a month or so before I was seeing her. She promised to break up with him about 4 different times. She did, and then got back together like the next day. So to recap. My girlfriend of a few months had a girlfriend while she was dating me. She was also in a sexual relationship with another different guy whom other girlfriend and I knew nothing about. The kicker about this? A year later she posted on Facebook saying, I have too decided I want to have surgery to become a man, also I believe in polygamy. Brought everything nicely into perspective.